Daleks Invasion Earth, 2150 AD. This is the second theatrical movie starring Peter Cushing as Doctor Who, and it was released in 1966, I believe. And I'm going to be honest, most of the episodes this week I haven't watched. Well, I have watched them and read them, but I'm coasting off knowledge from a couple of weeks ago when I first started this and before I restarted it to make it a podcast. So my knowledge of this isn't particularly in the front of my mind. Josh, can you remind me kind of what happens in this?
Well, can I summarise first?
Oh, please.
Yeah, let
Shortest,
Chris have a go first.
shortest summary possible, but in essence, the Doctor and his accomplices kidnap a wounded policeman to show him what it's like to be attacked by Daleks as well as thieves.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, no, that is a very apt description.
You
I
got
mean, yeah, just getting into that, he was kind of just kidnapped.
you got to feel sorry for Wilf.
Yeah, so yeah, we should probably discuss the characters first.
Right.
So you've got Doctor Who,
Yeah.
obviously, because he's in all of these. Still the same man. You got Susan, still the same granddaughter.
True.
And then you have Louise. So she's his niece. This was technically her first appearance.
Yeah.
Not in canonical order, but
Yeah.
release order.
Yeah, it's weird that between the movies, it's not really addressed in film where Ian and Barbara went, is it? And it's not really
No, they
addressed in
apparently
film.
didn't want to appear in the next movie.
And it's not really addressed in film where Louise came from, which is a bit weird.
Mm.
You would have thought it
But
would.
I guess they were just trying to tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, in the story.
It's-
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's obviously loose. Well, it's kind of adapted off the second Dalek serial.
Yep, it's. Yeah, I don't have it written down what it's adapted from. I think I did last time. Oh well. But yeah,
I think
it is.
it's Daleks Invasion of Earth or something.
Well, that
something
would
like
make
that.
sense. I think it is actually based off the Dalek Invasion of Earth from William Hartnell's era. So, yeah, replacing Ian and Barbara with Louise and Susan in this version.
Yeah. Oh, well, Susan was in the original version, but she was.
I'm not.
significantly
I don't
older.
think she was.
Yeah,
I
no,
think-
she was. This was her last appearance.
Oh right, yeah, it was, wasn't it? You'd think I would remember
Because-
that, but I don't.
Yeah. So apparently, this is obviously going off on a bit of a tangent, but Louise was meant to be sort of Susan from the original series, so she was meant to have like all the romance subplot and everything, but I didn't really see that.
And who was Susan then?
Well, Susan was just sort of a younger version of Susan.
Oh,
obviously
lovely.
Louise was like the replacement for the whole romantic bit, but I didn't really see that.
So really, the characters are Doctor Who, Susan, and Wilfred Mott.
Well,
Right. So there is a character in this called Tom Campbell, a policeman from 1960s Earth, and he's played by Bernard Cribbins, who would of course go on to play famous Doctor Who character Wilfred Mott in the modern era of Doctor Who, alongside David Tennant's 10th Doctor. And that's why I'm calling him Wilfred Mott.
So that's why I've seen him before. That
is-
makes sense.
Yes, that's where you've seen him before. Yeah. Yeah, this movie is okay. So I know I don't remember much from it because it has been a couple of weeks since I watched it first. But from what I remember, it's not very memorable.
yeah, no, it's not. It's
lo-
not as memorable as the first one,
It
which
really.
is probably why
Why what?
there was originally plans to like make a movie out of the third Dalek serial, but I think after this movie's not so good like reception as the first one, they kind of scrapped that idea.
Yeah, that'd probably be it. But yeah, this movie was interesting in parts. I'll give it that. However, the whole thing of
Especially that. I was just gonna say the scene where they have Bernard Cribbin's character like pretending to be like a mind washed person,
yeah,
eating food and stuff.
yeah, that was very
That was honestly the funniest scene in the movie.
It was very kind of 1960s comedy. That it was
Yeah, I was
very
half
of the era.
expecting that to turn into like a flash mob.
You're going to have to explain yourself.
It's just the way they sort of marched up, sat down, got back up again. It kind of felt like they were starting to like have like a dance sequence or something.
It was probably choreographed, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of the same
Anyway,
thing
we
as
can probably
dancing,
move on with the plot. As
I
you know, we don't have
suppose.
much time.
Yeah. So the Daleks are taking over Earth with the use of brainwashed humans to help do their bidding, and these are the Robo Men.
Robo humans, as they're described.
They're described as Robo Men, and
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, in the middle of the story, Doctor Who and Tom are almost converted into Robo Men. That was fun to watch.
Yeah. So the main idea behind this is the Daleks want to turn Earth into some sort of space station.
They want to drive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit confusing, but I guess it works.
Yeah, it works well enough, I suppose, as a motivation. But yeah, the Daleks want to do that. Doctor Who's motivation is to stop them from doing that, obviously. But yeah, it's quite a long film for what it is, actually. Maybe the reason it's not
quite a long
memorable is
film,
because
like,
it's
not much plot.
yeah.
I felt it was very dragged out.
Yeah. I mean, they just sort of all land in London, get attacked by Daleks. Some of them get kidnapped. Then they somehow all end up at a mine where it becomes unearthed that the Daleks are going to drop a magnetic bomb through a crack in the crust and blow up the core and then pilot Earth back to Skaro. So then the Doctor and co drop the bomb down the other hole and blow up the Daleks instead.
I don't get how they've dug that shaft that deep. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, obviously, it was made in the 60s, so they wouldn't have known everything we know today. But it's sort of just like the story doesn't really make sense for the most part.
And it includes all the fun post-production of magnetic wood.
You're going to have to explain yourself.
Basically, in one of the scenes, the police officer is climbing up sort of some wood inside the mine, and if you look carefully, he supposedly dislodges a plank of wood that tumbles into the abyss. But if you look, it never quite falls into the abyss, it just kind of sticks to the wall.
Oh, right. That's a weird oversight. I can't imagine that was meant to happen.
So, there's some good action sequences, but the plot's just a bit flat.
It was surprisingly slapstick.
Oh yeah, it was very slapstick. There was Bernard Cribbins. Turns out he's a great slapstick actor. The whole Robo Men sequence was very of the era kind of slapstick, and you can't fault it for being of its era, really, can you?
I mean, that scene kind of saved the movie for me. Like, obviously not saved completely, but it made it better.
There's also a lovely scene. There's a lovely scene, I think, in my books, it's quite nice. It's quite weird, where Doctor Who is looking at a map, and it is quite clearly a map of 1960s southeast England, to the point where the M25 isn't there, and anything that would be on it now is not there. However, the town I live in, we all live in, the town we live in is on the map, which is nice. It's there by name. So our town is in a Doctor Who thing. That's nice, I suppose.
See if you can spot it.
I'm not. Well, I'm not going to straight out tell you which town we live in.
No, you have to work it out from our accents.
Although I think I do mark my vlogs with a little location bit which says what town I live in half the time. But oh well. Right. So basically, how does the movie end, Josh?
So they go back to, I think it's like 2 minutes before the first scene where
The
Tom,
paradox.
where Tom sort of gets beaten up by the criminals and they get away. To he knows what's going to happen, so he gets into the back of the criminal's car, beats up the driver, gets into the front or something like that. The criminals get into the car and he sort of takes them out and drives off and waves at Doctor Who, Susan, and Louise.
I really meant how did the 2150 AD plot end?
Oh, well, the Daleks fall as Chris said, they divert the magnetic thing in a different direction. The Daleks get pulled in, and it all gets blown up.
Sounds rather like the end of Doomsday,
Yeah,
the season 2 episode.
Yeah.
Really, Doomsday just stole every plot point from this. Who knew?
Well, if we're talking about stealing plot points, just you wait till later.
Well, I suppose. That's kind of something different, but oh well.
Even though technically this took the plot points from the original serial. So
Yeah, they're all adaptations. Josh, what did you think of this movie overall?
Oh, wait, before that,
Okay.
can we quickly go back to the ending? Because surely that would have been a paradox. Because in the first sequence, the driver of the getaway car gets out, beats up the policeman, then waits outside till the other guys leave the shop. And then when they return to it, while he's still in the car, the policeman beats up the driver of the getaway car. Thus, his past self would never have been beaten up and never gone to see the doctor, and hence negating that loop.
Yeah, it is a.
I mean, it's a movie from the '60s. We can't really look that deep into it.
But
Although it is a show about time travel, maybe we should.
Yeah, but we don't have the time.
We kind of don't. Josh, overall thoughts, rating out of 10.
Overall thoughts. Well, wasn't as good as the previous movie. Quality for its time, very good, like sort of production quality.
Yeah.
It had some comedy in it, but overall just not very memorable. So I'd say, based off the fact that I rated Doctor Who and the Daleks 7 out of 10, I'm gonna have to be quite harsh here and sort of give it probably 5 out of 10.
All right, Chris, overall thoughts, rating out of 10.
I mean, plot-wise, it seemed alright. It was, I mean, production quality, well, for its time, was quite good. It's a little shaky in places, but that made it quite enjoyable to watch. Like the one scene where they're trying to get on board the Dalek ship, they blow up the Dalek catching them, and then it just rolls down the slope and crashes off the end. That was quite satisfying to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for that reason, it was definitely quite an enjoyable watch. I'd say 7 out of 10.
Right, I'm going to have to go kind of with Josh here. While it was a nice romp with some enjoyable moments in the comedy scenes, overall, I just didn't find it very compelling or memorable. I'm going to have to give it a 5 out of 10 as well. And that concludes the arc of Doctor Who. That is the final story of his era, and it is the final story we'll watch. Oh, okay.
One more thing, I just want to add this. He's referred to as the Doctor an awful lot in this. They kind of just dropped the whole Doctor Who thing from the first movie and just referred to him as the Doctor.
I mean, technically, you can still call a doctor the Doctor. Like.
Yeah, but it's just sort of, they kind of dropped the whole thing they were trying to go with in the first movie.
Yeah, I suppose. It ends the whole arc of Peter Cushing's Doctor Who. And we're going to move on to something a bit different. So, if you remembered in the first episode, I explained about the concept of the other, a version of the Doctor before the first Doctor. And this next string of episodes is going to harken back to that. And, well, you'll see how, I suppose. But for the most part, we are going way ahead in the Doctor's timeline to the 7th Doctor.